Continuing on with the Nightreign hot takes, I took to my community page. I asked a question about people's hot takes and unpopular opinions as it pertains to Elden Ring Nightreign, and I got a whole bunch of comments. We already made one video based on that, but now we're going to go ahead and make a second one because there were a handful of hot takes that I didn't get to cover, so I'm going to talk about them now. Nightreign has the potential to be a full-blown, decade-long spanning live service title if the DLC is done right, and not gonna lie, I'd love to see that be the case. Look, I kind of agree with this take in that it can turn into a live service game if done correctly. I did just make a video last week talking about things that Nightreign got wrong and some things that I'd like to change. And if they did actually add all those things that I talked about, like a relic reworking system, actually improving the quality of end-of-day bosses by actually adding in main bosses from the previous Dark Souls games and even from Elden Ring, having a bunch more game modes, just adding a way more points of interest to the map, having another additional thing to grind for to help make your builds, all those things would be great and definitely would help. But the thing is, I don't think they should really do that and really focus on this game being a live service game. And the reason being is because I see Nightreign to be a game where like they're just playing it safe. They're testing the waters. They're branching out into different genres so they can actually learn some new things and implement them into their next games. And I definitely do believe that the things that they learned from Nightreign, they're probably going to implement into their next major release and then potentially into a larger like multiplayer roguelike project. Because Nightreign is still being ran on the older consoles. I guarantee like in 3 to 4 years from now, the game's gonna feel very dated when From Software inevitably make their like next-gen exclusive type of game. Because I can guarantee in this next major release for a From Software game is gonna be something very innovative from a gameplay perspective when it comes to things like performance, graphical enhancements, potential like new combat features. There'll be so much more interesting stuff from like this next generation of FromSoft games that I feel like that this one is not gonna really age as well. Like it is a great concept, it can go very far, but if they were to make a live service game, I'd rather it be for the next generation and not for this generation, because these games are still being played on the PS4. It's still the older engine, and then like Elden Ring is like the final step to like the Souls generation as well. So I think the next generation is where you potentially want to make a live service game. BEASTMEN of Farum Azula Evergaol isn't hated enough. Honestly, almost every single Evergaol boss just isn't hated enough, especially the gank Evergaol bosses. Any single time that more than one enemy comes out of an Evergaol boss, I just immediately get pissed off because it takes forever to kill. They're annoying, obnoxious, and they just don't give you good rewards. The reception of Souls bosses compared to the Elden Ring bosses show that despite the limited movesets, Dark Souls bosses have far more interesting and fun designs, and we should go back to the simpler times, even if it is easier. I kind of understand where he is trying to go with this. Like the earlier games, especially in a game like Demon Souls, the bosses have like these very set mechanics to where like you don't really fight them like you fight a regular enemy. But once you get later into like the games and like the newer games, every single boss tends to just be like a glorified mini boss. Like there's no set mechanic that you have to do. You just fight it the same way as you fight everything else. You just like read the moveset, you dodge the moveset, and then you attack when you have an opening. And they have been trying to blur the lines between those two things, especially with these Everdark bosses by actually having like a separate gimmick or a separate mechanic. And I think having a variation of bosses is just fantastic. Like everyone is always going to end up liking like the generic knight that has like a really good moveset. Like everyone's favorite bosses tends to fall under that category. And like the gimmick bosses or the bosses that have these like very set and weird mechanics tend to be the ones that aren't really liked as much, but I definitely think they should still be in the game, because if you have like a whole roster full of nothing but knight bosses that have cool movesets, it's not going to make them really feel as special. But with that being said, I feel like the reason why people might look at the Dark Souls bosses to be more interesting than the Elden Ring bosses is because the Elden Ring boss lineup that we actually have is nothing but basic field bosses. Like we only have a handful of main Elden Ring bosses in this actual game. And if we're going to go ahead and compare bosses like Smelter Demon or Gaping Dragon to a boss like Godric or Morgott, then it's not even that big of a difference when it does come to like unique or interesting designs. Like, I definitely do believe that their next game should have a lot more, like, cannon fodder bosses or, like, gimmick types of bosses to where you're, like, fighting it a bit differently and not every single boss feels like the final boss fight. But either way, I'm not going to really complain. I like having tough, challenging bosses, and I do also appreciate having more variety of bosses. Pursuer would be more interesting than Morgott for a boss who is pursuing you. Now, like, my obvious reaction to this is, like, why not both? I feel like there should be a pursuer or an invader boss for every single game. They shouldn't just be the one pursuing boss invasion like what Morgott does. But with that being said, like, yeah, pursuer is like more fitting thematically speaking, because, based on his name and his lore. But gameplay speaking, Morgott is way more interesting. Like, he gets a teleport and have this big ass holy attack hammer slam. He has like a plethora of like these projectile attacks when you tend to like run away. And Pursuer's moveset is like way too basic in comparison. Like, if the Pursuer were to be in the game, they would have to like update his moveset to be a bit more modernized. And the funny thing is, the equivalent of a modern day Pursuer is pretty much the bell-bearing hunter. Like, both of these dudes is cut from the same cloth. So you might as well have a bell-bearing hunter invasion then. People like From Software because they make an unusual game. From Software makes Nightreign an unusual game, and people hate it because it's unusual? Yeah, no. People like From Software games because they're actually good and they're in a genre that they tend to like. And the people that don't like Nightreign tend to not like it because it's a game in a genre that they don't really care for. Now, there are like a handful of other people that are convinced that every single asset flipping game or every single multiplayer game is just like slop and shouldn't be cared for at all, and it's like low effort and a shit game all the time. Like, those people are just like ignorant and just like hating for the sake of hating. But yeah, other people not liking Nightreign doesn't really have anything to do with the fact that it's unusual. Honestly, I don't think any of the From Software games are that unusual. Like, the earlier Souls games, you can call them genre defining. They're definitely unique. Like, it's very recognizable to see a From Software game compared to some others, but I don't really think they're that like unusual of a game. Like, Yakuza, that's an unusual game. I don't think that game like Elden Ring or Elden Ring Nightreign is that unusual. Strong relics like the EVERGAOL relic are fun, and I think instead of nerfing the EVERGAOL relic, they should buff the rest to be more in line. No, I don't think they should do that at all. Like, the EVERGAOL relic is like ridiculously strong. If every single relic were just as powerful, it would make the game very easy, and it would make the progression system be heavily incentivized instead of actually having the difficulty behind the game actually learning the actual gameplay. Because if every single relic was that powerful, all you would have to do was just like fail a handful of expeditions, get a whole bunch of powerful relics, and then like easily breeze through the game. Like, having the relics be fun and be interesting, cool. Having them be really powerful is kind of a fine line, because you still want to have some type of skill-based progression. Like, the more that you learn about the game, the better that you end up getting at it. So if everybody could just make super broken builds after failing an expedition a few times, it could honestly like ruin the experience for some people. Now, once they end up adding hard mode expeditions, then I definitely do believe that having some more interesting and more powerful types of relics specifically for those expeditions would be very beneficial and definitely would help the end game out a lot. But yeah, not for everybody, no. Solo mode need an option to turn off the timing. It'll help new players when they get started to the game. The reward can just not be as much as normal when you turn up. No. I think they're talking about having like a free roaming activity to where you can go ahead and like just play for as long as you want. But like, that's just so stupid. Like, what would happen then? Like, newer players would just go into this game mode and just be able to just clear out the entire map, get to level 15, have all the best weapons, and then like steamroll the next bosses? What's the point of that? Like, what do these people think actually happen when you lose a game? Like, you go in the game, you just learn from your experiences, and you just go ahead into the next game. Like, it's not one of those things where you die in the game, you die in real life. Like, that's not a thing. Like, just go ahead and just experience the game. Like, you're meant to fail. It's a roguelike game. You're meant to learn from your experiences. Hot take, the storm needs to slow the fuck down. How about you speed the fuck up instead? Like, what the heck is this take? Are you serious? You can literally run like twice as fast as the rain or the storm. I don't get this. Like, I understand dying to the rain or the storm a few times because you're trying to like understand exactly how it works. But the people that actually talk about this, it makes me seem like they're actually dying to the storm over and over again. And like, I'll never understand it. Like, you can outrun it. Like, as soon as the storm starts to close in, just run away. Just like drop what you're doing. You can do it again in day 2. Even if you don't have time to do it, that's perfectly fine. You might just like sacrifice like a level or so. And like, the differences between level 12 and like level 13 or 14 honestly isn't even that big of a difference.